Gentlemen, excellent to be back with you on MGTOW Money. Today's topic, how crypto hodlers and online business owners crush the tax man. Before we get to that, thanks to the ongoing support from the Patreon supporters in this channel, as well as those guys that bought me a cup of coffee based upon the last video. Welcome, David, the newest member of Patreon supporters of this channel, the newest member of the MGTOW Money Army. David, thank you. Men, see the video description today. Become a supporter of this channel right now. Before I get into today's topic, in light of events a couple of weeks ago in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, I highly recommend, I stress, go to the video description today, click on the link today for the book that I'm including. I mentioned this before, How to Be Your Own Bodyguard. This gentleman is the real deal. He gives specific, objective ideas about how to deal with a live shooting situation in there, a chapter I am reviewing. So again, see the video description today, that book, How to Be Your Own Bodyguard. On to today's topic. Crypto hodlers, online business owners, crush the tax man. Men, I've done videos about this before. What's your biggest expense? And I'm not talking about housing or food or whatever. Actually, for most people, especially for single men, and I presume that you are, if you're a MGTOW, you're a single man, your biggest expense is taxes. Although for most of you, it's probably hidden. In other words, you're working a job, you get a W-2 once a year, and it just shows that the money sort of just automatically disappears out of your paycheck. You're expecting to get $1,000, and you only end up with $750 or whatever it might be. A lot of that money that's disappearing, if you will, from your taxes, that's being confiscated from your paycheck, is because of taxes. And yes, there are specific ways that you can reduce your taxes if you have a job, even if it's just a part-time job. Hey, I'm only working 15 hours a week. Cool. There are still ways you can go back and reduce your taxes. Again, go back to some of the prior videos that I've done specifically around the April timeframe in the United States relative to ideas on reducing your taxes. But now I want to talk about how crypto hodlers and online business owners in particular can reduce their taxes, because they in particular should be very sensitive to this issue. And here are three specific ideas. One, consider establishing residency, I'm putting that in quotations, in Puerto Rico. Yeah, you heard me. The place that got hit by a hurricane a couple of years ago. It's actually rebuilding itself and coming along very, very well. And there are some beautiful areas of Puerto Rico, Dorado being one of the examples. And there are some tremendous tax advantages for U.S. citizens to establish residency there in Puerto Rico. You don't necessarily have to live in Puerto Rico year-round to establish residency. I won't go into all the mechanics of this, but let me just tell you that under U.S. current laws, Puerto Rico, from a tax standpoint, is treated as a foreign country. And so therefore, by establishing residency there, and again, you can look at the article, I'll include a link to it, and it goes into some ideas about establishing residency in Puerto Rico. You can end up paying zero, I emphasize that word, zero taxes on capital gains in Puerto Rico and correspondingly in the U.S. So let's work through a very simple example. And by the way, if you don't know what a capital gain is, a short-term capital gain versus a long-term capital gain, simple example. You buy a stock, you buy a crypto, and you put $1,000 in it, and it goes to $2,000. If you've held that particular asset, stock, bond, crypto, whatever, more than 12 months, you qualify for a long-term capital gain. That's what you want to do, and that's what we're talking about here, are long-term capital gains. So again, let's go through an example. Joe the MGTOW is a very smart individual. Years ago, he was a lot smarter than I was, and he bought 100 Bitcoins. And I only wish I had the foresight to do what he did. And by the way, he also put a lot of money into several altcoins. He now has on paper, in other words, he's just sitting on these. He's a hodler. He's sitting on a capital gain today of over $300,000 off of his original investment. So let's just, again, using simple math, he put up $10,000 and now he has $310,000. So he has in value, paper value, so he has a $300,000 capital gain. And again, Joe the MGTOW, he's a hodler. He says, they're going to have to pry my dead fingers off my keyboard before I sell this stuff anytime in the future. In other words, he's planning on holding for several years because he is absolutely convinced this stuff is really going to work out well into the future. Cool. Awesome. All right. Under current tax laws, if he's held it more than 12 months, and if he sells, he will probably pay around 15% or so in taxes. So again, if he has a $300,000 gain on his assets there, and he's paying 15%, he of course would pay $45,000 in taxes. He's probably not looking very forward to paying $45,000 to the U.S. government. And by the way, those capital gains are probably going to increase in terms of the actual tax rate, in terms of how much he's having to pay, is probably going to increase in the future. Yeah, today he might be paying 45. In a few years, he might have to pay 55 or 60 in the future, depending upon how the political situation plays out in the United States. However, there is a way where he could potentially save his entire $45,000 in taxes. There's a couple of ways, and I'm going to go through it. One of those ways is, of course, that I was just referencing, is using tax residency in Puerto Rico. Again, I'll include a link to an article about this, about setting up a foreign residence there, and about the time frame required to be there, etc. Furthermore, maybe Joe MGTOW not only is a speculator in cryptos, he also runs some sort of online business. This, again, extremely common. By establishing a corporation also in Puerto Rico, he can have a tax rate on his business income of, get this, men, 4%. I can assure you, 4% is extremely low. That's about the lowest tax rate you're going to find in any country in the world. So a second idea for Joe, besides relocating to Puerto Rico, again, as a tax resident, is that if you're operating a business, it is a way to reduce your business income. Now, here's a catch to the whole thing, besides having to set up tax residency in Puerto Rico, is that this comes to an end December 31st this year. Therefore, if you want to do this idea, you need to start hustling. Next idea that I've got for you, and you don't have to hustle on this one, if you're running an online business. Now, let me give you an example of an online business of somebody that I know. This person builds websites and also has a very successful business doing SEO marketing, consults with businesses, and does Google search rankings, etc. Has done very nicely with it. In turn, you can set up an offshore corporation. In other words, again, a foreign-owned corporation. You do not have to set up a U.S.-based corporation to run your online business. The reason why you might want to set up an offshore corporation, and oh, by the way, there are millions of offshore corporations. A lot of the largest companies in the world use them. For example, Apple, Microsoft, etc. all use offshore corporations. And this is, by the way, again, is done strictly by paperwork. You don't physically have to go anywhere to do anything, because the income that's earned by the offshore corporation is typically taxed at, get this, 0. So in this particular case, you're paying 0 income taxes. You're paying 0 capital gain taxes. Now, again, another caveat on this one, a warning sign, warning Will Robinson. Beware that there are plenty of scammers when it comes to the offshore corporation area, that space, etc. Patreon supporters, heads up. If you want some information on this, let me know. I'll send along a potential source for you that I believe is legitimate, as legit as you're going to get, and they can help you set up something like this. Third idea for you, before selling your cryptos, get your income down. In other words, if you're a guy and you've got a significant gain, capital gain in your cryptos, in other words, they've gone up in value significantly, get your income down. In other words, if you want to be unemployed or you want to work some part-time job, get your income specifically below this level. Get it below, let's just say, $39,000 in a 12-month period. Make sure For a 12-month period, for a 12 calendar month period, it's below $39,000. The reason why this is so important, in particular in the United States, with the current, I emphasize, the current tax tables, if you're earning below that $39,000, for example, you can be in the 12% tax bracket, which correspondingly means you will pay zero capital gains on your taxes. So let's go back to Joe MGTOW for just a second. Joe, of course, has a $300,000 capital gain. If his income is low enough, he can avoid paying any capital gain taxes on there. In other words, he could end up pocketing the entire $300,000 and crush the tax man. Men, that, of course, is where you want to be. Do you want to write a check to the government for $45K, or would you rather just pocket that money? You decide. All right, gentlemen, a quick summary. You don't have to be a victim to the tax man. You can legally avoid taxes. You don't have to worry about getting some weird letter out of the middle of nowhere like the Coinbase guys did that I talked about on the past video about, hey, why haven't you paid your taxes? You can do this legally. You can be clear and upfront of exactly what you're doing. Furthermore, I would encourage you, I stress this in the strongest terms possible. Talk to a registered agent, a registered tax agent. Talk to a CPA. Just talk to a tax professional. Hey, look, I got this big capital gain here on these cryptos. What's the best thing to do? I got this very successful online business. What are some ideas that I can do to reduce my taxes? Furthermore, if they don't reference the ideas that I'm using here, just bring them up. Ask them. Or even better, do your own research. Get on Google. All this stuff is free. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is not magic. Gentlemen, as always, I hope you found this profitable. Hit the like button if you did. John Galt out.